In this video, we're going to look at your lab kits and how you can make sure you know how to do those and the lab activities. You may have noticed that we don't have that many lab kit activities this semester. There's 2 that are due at the midterm and then 2 that are due right around the time of the final. There's a bonus one too, and I'll talk about that in just a second. The reason we have to do these is with any college level science classes, most of them you're required to have a lab in order to get credit. And a lot of places don't accept just like lab videos like we're doing in here. So we have to add an additional lab kit activity. This is really cool too because you get to have some hands-on stuff. You'll get to do some dissections later on in the semester. So number one, that's why you have to have it, is if we didn't have it, this literally wouldn't count as a college level science class. But ordering your lab kit, you've got a couple links that you can do that through. If you needed to order through Gadsden State's bookstore for financial aid reasons, you can do that here. Or you can order directly from Carolina. That's the company that makes the lab kit. So just click on those links. If you have not done that already, please do not put that off. Do that as soon as possible. It can take a little while for these lab kits to come in, and I'm afraid with so many classes online across the country that it might be a little bit of a delay. So order that as soon as possible. But I pushed the first ones are not due until October 18th, just in case there is a big delay. Hopefully everyone will have theirs in by then, but do it now. When you get your lab kit, or even if you wanted to go ahead and do this, there's a lab kit introduction and lab safety that you have to do. You're actually required to do this before you do any of the lab activities. Like, I will not grade a lab if you haven't done the lab safety yet. Really simple though, it's just a lab manual that you'll need to read through. It's pretty common sense stuff, just how to make sure that you're conducting yourself when you're doing the labs, that you're not going to put yourself in danger or have any accidents or anything like that. After you've read the manual, and if you have any questions, let me know, or you can contact Carolina. But once you've read it and you feel comfortable with it, there is a lab safety agreement. You can electronically sign this, which basically just means typing it in. By typing your name and saving it and submitting it, you're saying that you agree to these things. So go through, read that. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. The big thing in here is just to make sure that you follow the lab safety guidelines and that you read the instructions beforehand. And that's going to avoid any accidents that we might have. Once you've signed that lab contract, you need to submit it through Blackboard. So just click Submit here. We'll save it to your computer when you're done, and then you will just attach it here, find wherever that item is, and turn it in to me that way. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, a couple more things. There are going to be times, especially in the dissection labs, where you have to label an image. You're going to have to take a picture of the brain that you dissected. And it's not terrible, it's actually pretty fun, so don't let that intimidate you. But you'll take a picture of the brain you've dissected, and then you're going to have to label different structures. You're going to have to look for them and label them. So it gives you instructions on how to do that using PowerPoint. If you don't have PowerPoint, every Gadsden State student has a Microsoft Office 365 account. So as long as you're enrolled here, you can download PowerPoint and use that from your computer. So there's instructions on how to do that. But what you'll do is you'll take a picture of your brain that you've dissected. You'll upload it into PowerPoint, and then you can add text boxes and arrows to name all the different structures you're looking for. Okay, so like I said, that's a little ways off, but when you need help with that, if you need help with that later, that's how we'll do that. So now for the actual lab activities. I've got different folders and I've got the due date posted. So the first 2 are going to go along with some of the stuff we covered in that chapter 2, 3, 4 lecture that we're going to do. So it deals with chemistry and the cells and things like that. Let's look at lab activity 1. You have your manual, which is just the instructions. You can print this off if you want to, or honestly, just if you've got a computer that you can have while you're doing the lab, just have this pulled up and you can read through it that way. But you can print it if you want to. So it gives you all the instructions, all of the material that you're going to need, background information. And then it's going to tell you how to do the lab. So you'll walk through, you'll follow these instructions. And then if you read through, it'll tell you to record your data into the lab report. So let's look at that in a second. One more cool thing, I know that it can be frustrating just to read the instructions and not know what you're doing. So they have embedded different videos in here. When you click on these videos, it'll show you how to do any steps that might be a little tricky. So go through, you'll do your lab, you'll follow those instructions, and then you have a lab manual or a lab report, lab report that you'll complete. So you'll put your name and the date, here's your lab report, and then you'll go through and answer these questions. So you'll write down your answer and then save it. There are several tables where you'll have to type in information. So again, you're writing in all your answers. And then for all of these labs, you're going to have to provide photos, honestly, to show that you actually did the lab is why we're doing this. I've taught online classes enough to know that that can be an issue sometimes. So that's how you can do that. It tells to insert your photo results from activity 1. Be careful too, because it tells you what you have to include. So you're making sure that you're turning in the right, you're taking a picture of the right thing. And then on all of these, the entire semester, you need to have a piece of paper with your name and the date written on it. Again, just some type of verification that you actually did the lab. Okay? So just like that safety contract that we showed earlier, when you have done the lab report, you'll save it to your computer. Make sure you've answered everything, you've got your pictures up, and then you'll save that to your computer, and then you will submit the lab through Blackboard. Now, these take a little bit more time than like the Connect assignments that we're going to do. So because of that, they're going to be worth a lot more. They're worth 25 points apiece. So it is not a good idea to skip these. 25 points at the end of the semester can make a really big difference. So make sure that you do this. Again, the reason they're weighted so much is you have to do this. You have to have a hands-on lab part in order for this to be considered like a legitimate college class. So if you're not doing this, you're not technically taking a college class. Right, so it's got different folders for each of those labs. The first 2 are due around the midterm on October 18th. But try to do them early on as soon as you get your lab kit, because we're covering this stuff in the first unit for the first test. So while it's fresh on your mind, it would be good to do that. Now, way later on in the semester, we're going to do the nervous system. That'll actually be the last system that we cover. And you will have a brain and eyeball dissection. These instructions in the lab manual are written so that you could do this earlier if you wanted to, but I would really recommend to wait until we're talking about the nervous system, and that way what you learn in lab will help you in the lecture too. All right, finally, the last thing down at the very bottom, there is a bonus lab. So this is on biological macromolecules. You can see there's a lot of different things that you're going to need to provide for this. So you're going to have a bunch of different food sources that you're going to test, like meat or fruits or vegetables or cheese, mustard and ketchup. There's a lot more activities that are in this lab. So because this one and the first 2 have to do with the beginning of the semester, that's just a lot of work to expect you to do. But if you would like to, if you've got enough time, or maybe in the middle of the semester when there's some downtime, if you want to complete this lab, it's going to be worth 25 points, just like the other ones, except these are going to be bonus points. That can really help. 25 bonus points is a big chunk of points. If you'll do it early in the semester, it'll kind of help you out with that Chapter 2 chemistry stuff we talked about. All right, so that one, I'm going to give you until the end of the semester to complete that. Just word of warning, don't put all these off. Like, don't wait until December the 12th and say, oh, I've got to do these 3 labs real quick, because that's when you're going to mess up and you're not going to learn the information either. So it might not help you on the test. All right. So hope that's got it. If you have any questions, let me know. Just I know it can be kind of confusing when I say talk about the test. It's just if you're doing this, you're going to learn more about the brain. So like you'll do better for the lecture test. You are not going to have test questions on these labs necessarily. Like I'm not going to say when you did the experiment back in lab kit activity 2, what was your results? Once you do the lab, that's it. That's all you're going to use that material for. But it can kind of help you learn that. All right, so sorry if I made that any more confusing than it was to begin with. If you have any questions, let me know.